All right, good morning. Let's get our other Facebook groups up in here before it's officially time to go. We got Boom and Boom. All right, welcome in. Welcome in. It is the 5th of July. Happy Independence Day, everyone. Hopefully everybody was safe and welcome back. It's the normal crew. Things are kind of normal right now. Things are disheveled around me though. I'm moving houses this week, so it's a little bit chaotic, but yeah, I know. Gosh, it's one thing after another. But yep. So welcome in, and this is the last week of me recording in this area. So I think it's going to be bright yellow walls behind me after this in the room I'm going to be after this. So
I think we
enjoy
should paint
the
them green, personally.
green. That's Natalie's
Yeah, we'll
color
green.
too.
We'll green screen the whole room for you, and we can make it a
Oh.
3D background.
Yeah, well, let's see what the rental people allow me to do, but that's an idea. But welcome in, Scott. It's been a hot second.
It has, and with so much going on, it feels like I haven't seen you since I don't know. It's been like 2 weeks. Even
Yeah,
like Tuesday you were off, and then Thursday you were solo because I was out of town. But I was in the background. But here we are. It's July. It's camp month. It's like football month now. It's here
hmm
already.
yeah,
They talk
absolutely.
about a
Welcome.
long off season. I'm like baloney. The off season's like 2 minutes. Are you joking?
Yeah, July feels it's like a little bit shorter though on the news, but that's okay. Everybody can enjoy themselves a little bit. And we got some likes coming in. Ramon Guzman coming in with a like on Facebook, and Gary Leeds Palmer, of course, at the heart over on Facebook. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you're liking, subscribing on YouTube and Facebook, and wherever you watch the shows. And this is obviously Broncos for breakfast. Let's say hello to some people in the chat since it's been a bit. I miss some of these faces. Ethan coming in saying the DWI guys, of course. Good morning, gents in Broncos country. Good to see you, Ethan. And Dale coming in. Afternoon, Ethan. Well, what about us, Dale? No, I'm just kidding. Paul coming in. Happy to have the band back together. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Hashtag Broncos for breakfast. And Scott, what did you do? What did you do your weekend? Did you have a little bit of time off, some family stuff?
I don't know. What did I do? I drove back. Oh God, now I remember. You ever get so tired you just don't remember? It's like you're
Yeah.
blacking out. Yeah, that's
Yep.
where I was. So I drove back from Florida Saturday morning. Went on a 90-minute walk in the afternoon, in the 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the Georgia weather, and then
Oof.
took my son to a baseball tryout where registration started at 5, but they didn't have pre-registration, so they weren't expecting that many kids to show up, and they didn't turn them loose till 11 o'clock at night for a
Wow.
baseball tryout. So that was my Saturday, and my Sunday and Monday were just trying to recover and remember what happened the next day. So I feel refreshed today. Today feels like Monday to me, and I feel refreshed. But freaking Sunday and Monday, I was so tired, I don't even remember what happened. I have to stop and think. Saturday was a long damn day.
Well, I got over the Rona and went on a backpacking trip, and my friend recorded 40 miles and 5,800 feet of elevation gain over the weekend. So I got some blisters on my feet. I'm a little bit tired, but if you want to, if backpacking or hiking isn't hard enough for you, do it right after a Rona infection. So I'm feeling okay though. I'm happy to be home into the chaos of moving now, but that's life, right? One thing after another. We got Ethan weighing in on the topic of today, saying Muma should be the starting linebacker. Afternoon,
Uma,
Dale. Muma. Yep. It's we'll see how Muma does. We'll get a chance to see him this
where did
year.
he end up, actually? I couldn't even tell you.
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Oh, God, who didn't?
Yeah, right. They ended up he was picked right after the Broncos took
They're
Benito.
running a 1-8-1 formation this year.
Yep. Yep.
Nose
They took
guard,
him.
8 linebackers, and a safety.
Yeah, do they still have Miles Jack too? I mean, gosh, they signed
They signed Foye
Oluokun.
Oluokun.
Hmm.
They brought in another one, and then they drafted Muma. So they're playing linebackers.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get down the Jacksonville Jaguars talk here, but they do play in the AFC South, where you have Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. It's probably a little bit more important there to be sturdier at the linebacker position in the AFC West.
It's less than a quarter of your games.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, like, oh, you got to win your division. No, you don't. No, you
yeah,
don't.
win
It's
games.
those are 4 of 17 games.
Yeah, true. That can make a
I
difference
know you
though.
got to
I mean,
play them twice, and
yep,
those head to heads matter to a
yeah,
certain extent, but it's a strange strategy they employed in the offseason to invest so heavily in the linebacker position.
it definitely was. Excuse me, guys, it definitely was. We also have Dale coming back in saying, "Morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos country. Muma's not on the team. I'm thinking Griffith is going to stand out, and Singleton is just a depth piece. Yeah, we'll get it in a second. I'll say hello to everybody in here. Sunny days with the smiling face, the coffee mug, the thumbs up, and the blue and orange hearts. We appreciate you, Sunny days. U.S. Dave's in the house saying morning all. Good to see him. U.S. Dave, hope you're doing well. I saw we had BX Bronco Jedi. Good morning, fellows. Good to see you. Of course, we also had Peter Middleton saying last day in England. Hope you're having a great breakfast. Peter, let me know where you're on the beans and toast combination out there in England. I tried it when I was out there. It was okay. But I don't know. It's a weird kind of breakfast thing. Dale coming in. Oh, we also have Edward coming in saying, my guys, glad you're all back. Happy to be here as well. Gary Leeds Palmer saying a tip of the cup to Nick and Scott and all of Broncos country.
With the stars. Cheers to you, Gary. Thanks for the coffee this morning.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Gary, getting the ball rolling there for us on the kicking off the month. Also, we got Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Let's ride and go Broncos. Michael rocking the new profile picture. Don't think I didn't notice. Good to see you, Michael. And we got Peter Middleton also coming in. And this is a topic about the linebacker position saying, where do you guys see AJ Johnson going? I can't, or Alexander Johnson, whatever he wants to go by. I can't see him being a Bronco. Griffith will be the other starter this year. I could see if, God, knock on wood, but Alexander Johnson would be a great piece for any team that loses a linebacker in minicamp coming up or the beginning of training camp or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's still a quality stack, box linebacker. You're not going to ask him to cover much, but he can accumulate tackles and be strong in run support and not be totally out of position. So he's a valuable piece still out there.
Yeah, I don't know and you answered that just like who's losing somebody. I don't know the rosters well enough to know who still needs an inside linebacker out there. I mean, he's a good player. He'd be an upgrade on most of the inside linebackers, but what's he willing to play for? It's a devalued position, which he is finding out as he's tested the free agent waters and is still out there. So he'll be able to sit back and pick his spot, and he's going to have to probably do it for less money than he would want to. But he'll end up on a contender, would be my guess.
Yeah, I could see him on the Patriots or a team like that where the linebackers are much more funneled to. Obviously, they got some good guys there, but that's a team that would make some sense.
It doesn't make sense for him to end up to hold out for the most amount of money for a team that's not in a contending spot. One, he's older, so they're not going to invest the money that he wants into a player of his age. Two, it's a devalued position. So I don't see him getting a big payday. I see him probably taking a pay cut of sorts and ending up playing for a better team. Not better than the Broncos. I mean, just better than the max value you could possibly get and pick his spot. He'll end up playing for a contender would be my guess.
And he's a fine linebacker. Now everybody's really wanting that coverage linebacker, but if you those guys are pretty rare unicorns. It's kind of like I want a top 10 left tackle or do everything running back. Like just not many of those guys out there. When you do have them, they're valuable. But a lot of times one thing that we found out over the past 10 years or so is that draft status for the linebacker position is probably one of the least correlated positions to success at the next level. So you don't really have to invest super highly in the position to get good value. And a lot of times also that the ones that do hit the market, you want to buyer beware. I mean, look at Mosley with the Jets. He's one that you want to be afraid of. Not to the extent of running backs, but they're definitely there where they hit that 30-year-old mark, and it's like not many of them are hanging on.
Yeah, and he's a veteran. There's no reason that he can be a guy that comes in the week before training camp and be ready to go. Or the week before, the third game of the preseason, you sign him and he's in the starting lineup. So he doesn't need a whole lot of time to be acclimated to a system. He's a plug and play guy. He won't be in any hurry. I'm sure he'd like to be signed, but he can wait and pick his choice and what's the best situation for him in September. It doesn't have to be July.
Yeah, nope, absolutely. It'll be curious to see where he goes. Good player, a lot of fun. But like you mentioned, devalued position and still out there. We got Dom coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Glad to have everyone. Glad everyone is back for the Broncos, Denver Broncos for life. Good to see you. We also got SROMBOMB001. That's a name I don't recognize. So welcome in. Saying good morning, Broncos Nation. Good to see you in here as well. Peter also coming back in saying thanks for the nice discussion on it. Pats are a good call. Totally agree that he's waiting for a contender. Also, Jared is in here saying happy 4th, everybody. Good to see you, Jared Nayermeyer. So let's get into this, Scott. We're talking the Broncos linebackers here, and I guess the first thing we need to talk about here is Josey Jewell. Are we feeling good about putting him down in Sharpie as the one of the Broncos' two starting stack linebackers this season, or is there more of a discussion there we we've had to date?
I think it's still a dry erase board, honestly. Again, I think the upside that Jonas Griffith brings makes it very interesting. Now, when they say the starting linebacker next to, is that even a case? We've talked about this a lot, Nick, that, yeah, it might be a base 3-4. How many times out of 100% of your snaps are you going to be having two inside linebackers on the field? So is it really your base offense, base defense then? So I think if you've got two on there, he's definitely one of the two. But if you're going out there with one, which you're going to be a lot, how often is he going to be the one out there? Jonas Griffith, I like I said, I love his size and his athletic upside. Alex Singleton, to me, is a steady type, gets a job done, but not necessarily a huge playmaker, which is fine for this defense, which you're looking for. And then Josey Jewell is that plus. He's that familiar with some good leader, all of those type of things. So I think there's going to be a fairly solid rotation in there. And if you're going to say a base 3-4, yeah, you can write his name. You can write his name in there. But how often are they going to be in that base? And how often will he be a single in the middle? I think that's the question.
Yeah, I think that I would put Josey Jewell and Penn. The only reason that not Sharpie, so to speak, is it's the injury questions. Can he stay healthy or whatnot? But I think the linebacker position, it's much more. It's kind of like the quarterback, where it's great to have the tools, it's great to have the big arm, it's great to be the athlete and everything. But it's really a neck up position, more or less, at least at starters. And not that Jonas Griffith can't be intelligent, but we've had multiple coaching staffs come through here now and praise Josey Jewell for what he's done. I mean, former 4th-round pick from the University of Iowa. I think he was a 0-star recruit growing up on a turkey farm in Decorah, Iowa. And, he's been kind of doubted his whole career and just kept making plays because he processes things so well. And he's actually an underrated athlete. I think he was like in the 96th percentile on his 3-cone. His short shuttle was really, really fast as well. So he's got good agilities. My biggest issue with Josey Jewell, honestly, is his size. He's actually pretty diminutive, and that can be issues sometimes taking on block and filling up zone when he drops into zone coverage. But either way, I think he is the starter. He might not be the green dot wearer. That might end up being Justin Simmons in the end. But I think for the linebacker position, especially if you're playing less of them, I would sacrifice a little bit of coverage upside / athleticism if it means that linebacker is consistently in the right place, making the right checks at the line of scrimmage. Because they're going to set up the linebacker position where even if he's getting quote unquote beat, it's not going to be getting burnt. The guys who get burnt are the ones that are getting their hips, their eyes in the wrong spot and creating a massive void and ruining the entire integrity of the back seven of the defense. And I got this guy I kind of dunk on a lot, but I really disliked him coming out. And he still is a huge issue for this defense. And Kenneth Murray for the Chargers, great athlete, but he gives away as many plays as he makes out there on the Chargers defense because he's constantly guessing wrong. And you can't have that with the linebacker position. I guess the only position you can't have that more so with is the safety position, but still, it makes you really vulnerable. And you don't get that with Josey Jewell. So he's very, very steady, and I would expect him to be the starter this year.
No, we say it all the time, but the farther away from the ball, the more the athleticism matters. The closer you are to the ball, the more the things you can't measure matters. That counts for center, that counts for inside linebacker, that counts for quarterback. Where it doesn't count is running back. So the guy right behind the ball, he's got to be an athlete. That's the exception to that rule.
DT also, I would say. You want some athletes at defensive tackle if you can.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, absolutely. So yes, those are the two exceptions. Otherwise, it's more about the intangibles, not more, but it's as important to the intangibles as it is. If you've got that freak guy that you're talking about in Kenneth Murray, sounds like you move him outside and put him at edge.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the question about Baron Browning, is did he get moved before he becomes Kenneth Murray? Does he have, listen, he doesn't read the game as well as Josey Jewell. He doesn't line people up as well as Josey Jewell. Let's put Josey there and take advantage of Baron's athleticism on the outside. That's logical. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that certainly makes sense. When we're
Yeah.
talking about, again, a scheme that doesn't value the inside linebacker position as much, isn't going to use him as much on the field, and I've got a guy that's going to do everything I want to do, let's find a way to get Barron on the field.
Yep.
Again, we've had that discussion several times, and the more and more we talk ourselves into it, the more and more it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish I'd be way too much work. I don't have the time for it, but to go back and kind of look at the early Baron Browning discussion, because I was very much on the, could he play edge? Because it's a more valuable spot. You have questions about Von Miller and Bradley Chubb long term. And if, let's say, you can get an average player at the edge spot versus an average player at the stack linebacker spot, it's probably twice as much value, monetary wise, maybe even more on the open market for Browning at edge than you would get at that second linebacker spot. So, curious to see what happens with him. He's definitely a part of this discussion as well. We'll circle back around, but yeah, again, I know that Ethan especially likes to give us a hard time about Josey Jewell, saying he's a special teamer at best, but he's going to be a solid player for them there. Not a superstar, but I don't think you need a superstar at the linebacker position in today's NFL. It's much more about, can you rush the passer? Can you cover? And the cornerbacks and the pass rushing spots.
All right. Speaking of Josey Jewell and the injury, my brother-in-law is a physical therapist doctor, and he's been doing it for years. We're older guys. He's not as old as I am, but he started off as a trainer, for a college football team, and he's worked his way up and did it. And I asked him, he doesn't know anything about the Broncos or anything. I said, how weird is this? We've talked about how, Nick, we could go 10 more years without hearing about 2 pectoral tears, period. I don't mean just on one team. I mean at all. To have the same player, he goes, first thing he said, just right out of his mouth, he goes, that's bad training. And then the next thing he said, he goes, the other part that you have to consider is maybe they had been having shoulder problems and had been getting cortisone shots in there, and something forms that, not a mass or something, but, where it tightens up so much that's where they end up tearing that. And I'm like, interesting. And I was afraid of this, Ethan. When I went and looked at YouTube, it wasn't running automatically. So let me type in a hello. We are live, because Ethan's asking if we are live, and he's missed the first 15 minutes of the discussion. So we need to do that every morning. And if someone else is, watching, so, hey, we're live, just hit refresh so they can refresh their stream on YouTube. Because I went and checked something on YouTube, and I still have the splash screen, and it didn't start. And that's been a problem recently. So again, the training questions that went in, it's just, I do believe in coincidence, but 2 torn pectorals from 2 linebackers on the same team in the same season, come on, that's crazy. That is crazy. So there was something going on behind the scenes there that helped contribute to that.
Yeah. Yep. And Dale saying, looks like you're still having some after effects from Rona. Just a little bit of coughing stuff up, but I'm feeling significantly better. A little tired, but that might be from the backpacking trip. On the way out, I tried to get ahead to get my group a campsite, and I probably did, let me see, 6.5 miles in about 3 hours. I was booking it like a 40-pound pack down the mountain. It was a good time. My knees are feeling it though this morning. We also got Falling Sloth coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you. Chris Jenkins, morning, fellas. Morning, Broncos family. Good to see you. Callum F coming in, looking like he's holding, God, that's a monster fish there. Saying, can't wait for the NFL season to start and come on TV in the UK. Absolutely. Also saw the Russell Wilson was over there promoting the UK game as well with us here. I talk about a power couple. Maybe they're not Tom Brady and Gisele Bunch, but that might be the second most notable power couple in the NFL. Do you think, Scott? I mean, we're talking, this is off-season talk to a peak, but power couples in the NFL, I can't think of anybody.
I'm trying to think Q ratings, and that no one else really comes to mind. Aaron Rodgers by himself is pretty big. Patrick Mahomes by himself is pretty big, but I can't think of anybody else that has, the notable significant other that's every bit as much. I mean, on the international level, there's a center back for Barcelona, arguably the biggest club in the world, top 3, and he's married to Shakira. So that might be number 1 for worldwide, but in the NFL, that one's pretty tough.
Yeah, I can't think of any other ones that really. Oh, Eric Decker with his wife Jessie Decker, who was a country music star there for a bit. I'm not into the country music, so
yeah, that's good, but it's not. It doesn't register the Q rating the same as Russell Wilson and Sierra.
I forgot Reggie Bush and Kim Kardashian were together for a hot second too.
Nope.
No, okay. Those are the only ones that really stick out to me. So, yeah, Russell Wilson over there looked like a good time, and excited for NFL to come back also in not just the UK but everywhere. We got Wyatt coming in saying Jewell is the anchor of the defense that most people don't want to admit. Would you would you argue that Jewell's the anchor of the defense? I think it's probably Justin Simmons,
I
but
think this
Jewell's
is
up
probably
there.
Justin Simmons' team. If you listen to Carl Mecklenburg's segment, and actually I cut it up as a segment. If you scroll through the timeline, you can find it talking about why he really likes Josey Jewell. And it says because he's helping other guys make plays that you don't get to see by getting them lined up. We talked about this with Nakobe Dean, the Georgia linebacker, getting in a guy's face saying, okay, this is how you do this, and then loving him up when he did it. That's Josey Jewell also, the quarterback of the defense. Is he the anchor? I think you'd notice Justin Simmons not being there more than you'd notice Josey Jewell not being there. So I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think he's a very valuable piece, Wyatt. Absolutely. I think he is definitely underrated. I know for a fact coming into last season he was overrated just based on the descriptions I was getting versus me then putting eyeballs on him and like, you guys are underselling this cat. He can play.
Yeah.
So it was a shame it was a shame he got hurt because he started off at a really high level last year. And I'm glad it wasn't a lower body injury. So he should be back 100%. There shouldn't be any residual wear on those legs where he can come back and be just as fast, just as quick because I was impressed with his lateral movement, his sideline to sideline ability relative to the scouting report I was being given on Josey Jewell.
Yeah, nope, he's a good one. Solid, and happy the Broncos have him back. Obviously, you always want better, and the linebacker position is very romanticized in all NFL fan bases. I don't know what it is. It's such a visceral position, and they make the big hits and whatnot, and the leader and whatnot, and very, a lot of NFL lore is written with the linebacker being the face.
They were free to run. So they were visible in a game where they're wearing helmets. It's not like basketball or even baseball, where the NBA gave up on teams a long time ago and started marketing the individuals. It's tougher to do that in the NFL because they're gladiators out there. You can't see them. But I can see Dick Butkus running like a madman over there while the guys in the trenches are, stationary for the most part. So on defense, when there's less passing involved back in the day, the inside linebacker was the most mobile, most visible player out there. And yeah, it got romanticized and they're tough as hell too. So it got romanticized. The game has changed a little bit. I wouldn't say I saw the tail end of that era. I mean, I grew up with Mike Singletary. And then the next was Brian Urlacher, and that might be as close to the end of that era as we've seen. But,
Ray Lewis.
I grew up with the linebackers, Lawrence Taylor, Mike Singletary. All those guys were faces of their franchises, and it was fun. Those guys were, dare I say it, but they were men. They were men's men. Am I allowed to say that anymore? Or is
Now
that toxic? But they were guys that you're like, okay, I want to be like that guy. Those guys are badasses.
Yep. Yeah, good players. I mean, when you have a great linebacker, it's really fun. I will never forget when I was very early in the NFL draft process. Would have been the 2012 draft where I'm scouting and come across Luke Kuechly's tape at BC, and it's like, holy bleep. This is unbelievable. So yeah, they're a lot
direction
of
changers. When they arrive at a pile and the pile goes the other direction, Kuechly's like that, and you've got to be a little different to be able to change the direction of a ball carrier or a pile. There's not many of them out there. It sounds simple enough, but there's not many of them out there that will simply change the direction of the ball carrier the way these linebackers that we romanticize can.
Yep. There's a couple in the NFL now. I think Darius Leonard is incredible. Fred Warner is incredible. Micah Parsons is incredible, but it's in a different way. Micah Parsons is like a Lawrence Taylor kind of incredible, where his surplus value is coming because you can line up at edge.
He's more cheetah than male lion.
Yeah. Yeah.
The male lions are kind of chill, and then when they attack, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then Micah Parsons is just, he's a little bit lighter almost, seems like, but he's just so athletic that just impressive. We mentioned the Jaguars. The Jaguars are like that. Real Jaguars.
And we talked about
earlier,
the
water and yanking a crocodile out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Monsters.
Nature Show brought to you by Scott and Nick. And
Now
yes,
we're
the
going to do the rest of
coffee
the
at
show.
25 minutes is kicking in nicely. Thank you for asking.
For $5, you guys can get Scott to do David Attenborough for the rest of the show. No, okay, so Lawrence Rivera coming in saying, morning, guys. Happy 5th. Let's go make this bread. Good morning to you, Lawrence. Maybe stars here. Regardless, we appreciate you. We also have Chris Jenkins saying, morning, guys. Can't stay long. Started a new job today. Congrats, Chris. That's
Congrats,
awesome.
dude.
That's great. We love to see this community thriving. Excuse me. I just wanted to stop and say hi to my other family. That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. Hope you're doing well. Fallen South saying congrats, Chris, and good luck. Absolutely. And also Wyatt coming in saying, isn't it a pec that's hindered Derek Wolfe while he was here? Or was that a bicep? I can't remember. He had a multitude of injuries there at the end that it's kind of they stacked on each other, and he's still dealing with injuries. So unsure of that one, but Derek Wolfe, hopefully he's well. I think he's injured again though, and might be out for this season. I'm unsure. That's the way it goes, man. Once you turn 30 in the NFL, those injuries really start to stack up. We got Chris Beeston coming in saying, morning, everyone. Good to see you, Chris. And also we have some people over on Fallen Sloth saying, YouTube has always done that for me, maybe because I'm usually using a mobile device. Interesting. Yeah, maybe when we end the show, it asks, like, can you improve anything? Maybe that's what we'll put in the blip saying, hey, the YouTube won't automatically start.
Or isn't, and maybe that's on the YouTube side, but it is hindering. And we just need to remember, to type in the chat. We are live, and going back through some of our favorite players is Bruce Smith and Reggie White were DEs, weren't they? Reggie White would bounce inside and outside. He played at about 300 pounds, so he played tackle a lot, and then he played end a lot. Bruce Smith was pure end. He played at about 275, 280. Two of the best all time, without a doubt. Two of the best all time players in the history of this game.
Yeah. Very, very good. And David John coming in over on Facebook. This is a name I don't recognize, so good morning to you. Hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. Saying, if I remember, the pec tears were in games. As such, muscle tears could be due to poor tackling technique, which could get attributed to coaching rather than training. I don't know enough about the physiology of that and breaking down like the exact tackles where they got injured to have an opinion on that, but this is an interesting theory and one that I haven't considered before. I mean, you're playing a very physical game against some very strong men, so this is very possible. You don't see it in the NFL very often.
One of them is a freak occurrence. Two of them is unbelievable. I mean, that's like, oh yeah, he got struck by lightning twice. I mean, and linebackers have been tackling their whole lives. They've probably made 5,000 tackles in their lives. These guys, by the time they've made it to this point between practices and youth football and everything, that I don't know. It could be technique. It could just be complete freak of nature. I got bent around backwards. Something happened, and it could be. But it's just, again, David, we'll go 10 years before we see 2 torn pectorals in the NFL. I mean, It won't be that long. It happens more often than that. But I honestly, you never hear torn pectorals. And sometimes when you do, it's like training. They do it lifting. When you're maxing out on bench press or doing something like that. You do it when you're lifting, not playing. So the fact that it happened on field, I can't remember that ever happened. I've heard of guys doing it again, lifting, and it looks like they got hit with a 2x4. It like bruises all the way down to their hip when it happens. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's rough, man. This is why we're sitting here talking rather than playing the game. That's not the only reason, but man, I can't imagine. We got Vic Chen coming in saying, hey, hey guys, man, excuse me. And Tracy's baby coming in saying Alex Singleton is going to be a breakout player, very versatile. Yeah, let's get into this a little bit. We haven't talked as much about Griffith and Singleton yet, but I think, myself included, very much sleeping on Alex Singleton as a possible starter on the Broncos. I mean, if we're going to be starting, you might as well list like 13 players, list another interior defensive lineman, list a 5th or 6th defensive back, and then that second linebacker as well. But Alex Singleton definitely has a chance to be a starter. He's accumulated a lot of tackles for the Eagles. I think he was the leading tackler for the Philadelphia Eagles both of the last 2 seasons. Granted, tackles can lie. That's very much a scheme stat as much as anything. But definitely has a possible, and we talked about it earlier, the ceiling versus the floor argument. Singleton comes in and he really raises the floor of your linebacker position. You know what you're going to get from him. Is he going to be spectacular? No, but he's also not going to make a lot of mistakes and get out of position and leave your back of your defense vulnerable for explosive plays. So definitely think there's a chance for Singleton. I think the reason I pushed back so much when they first signed Singleton is because when I looked at it on paper, it meant that Singleton was beating out Baron Browning. That was before we had more and more information coming out that Browning was going to make that full transition to that edge rusher spot. So now it's a little bit more of a question. I'd rather have Jonas Griffith. You guys can go back, I guess, 9 months where I'm like, guys, like I'm hearing from my people that in Dove Valley, there's a lot of buzz surrounding Jonas Griffith. They really like this kid. And here we are. A lot of moves they've made have indicated that that wasn't just, some BS being pushed by one person who's friends with him in the organization. That's there might be something there, but still bringing in Singleton. If Jonas Griffith proves he's not quite ready or it's a little bit too much for him, Singleton can come in and provide some value.
Yeah, and sorry, Luke is saying good morning, Nick and Scott. I'm so tired. Me and my buddies were going crazy last night hitting the fireworks with tennis rackets, and we wonder why did they outlaw cherry bombs again? That was a discussion we had at our dinner table last night. Were M80s and cherry bombs. Glad you're here to stay with us, Luke. And Singleton saying a backup for the Broncos that's led the Eagles in tackles the last 2 seasons. Interesting pickup. I wanted to highlight this comment because a guy that's had close to 300 tackles the last 2 seasons, you cannot discount.
Yeah.
Why are we discounting him? For the same reason that it's so hard to come up as an undrafted free agent, as a lower draft pick, as a forgotten man, because you don't get the opportunities as much because there hasn't been the investment. This guy's had 300 tackles in the last 2 years. You can't write a guy like him off.
Yeah.
That's, again, you're talking about if that's the worst you get, if like, okay, he's our third string, fourth string, he's our backup, well, you're going to be in pretty good shape. The guy is a good football player. Is he the sexiest name in the world? Was he a former first-round pick or second-round pick with all the accolades? No, he's outplayed most of those guys.
Yeah.
He's the one that's done it and had the production. So why they decided to let him go, I could look it up, but I don't remember. But he's uber productive and he's cheap. Don't write a guy like that off. He's gonna play like every down is his last because when you're coming from that type of background, it could be. Good comment, Peter.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, it's the thing. It's kind of like there are the stats and the classic statistics, but teams are going away. I don't know. Who's it in here that's really anti-analytics? But teams are going away from the classic stats to dictate contracts and whatnot. Otherwise, Alex Singleton would have gotten paid. Somebody would have bit on Malik Reed if that was the case too this offseason when they put the original round tender on him as a UDFA. But alas, the advanced analytics and the tape kind of tell a different story. But Alex Singleton, I mean, the contract to me says backup player, that if he's playing, it means something went wrong. Because a 1 year, $1.115 million contract is nothing. On the
I'm surprised he couldn't get more than that, honestly.
Linebackers are devalued, and he's kind of a limited tools in the toolbox, a player as well. So I am surprised as well. I do wonder if he maybe had some other contracts on the table. But
how much different than it was in Foye Oluokun or Deion Jones? 140 tackles on the inside. I mean, I'm looking up his numbers. And Foye Oluokun comes out as a 6th-round pick, third year. He's a little bit younger. That's one of the things. It looks like he came into the league at 25 years old or was a practice squad guy. But again, for 1-1 on a guy that had 140 tackles, that's a bargain. And it looks like, he was practice squad guy for a long time, and maybe you get that rap. But when he got his chance as a starter, because he's with the Seahawks, with the Vikings, and then plays 3 years and makes the field with the Eagles. So he has been in the league for a while. He just didn't get a chance until he got to the Eagles. And when he got his chance, by God, he earned it. He kept it. 140 tackles on 8 starts. Come on, man.
Yeah.
He can play. He can play.
Question is
this guy off.
Is he going to be the best linebacker from Montana State in the NFL this year? That's the question.
No.
Okay.
No. Troy Anderson's a beast.
Yeah.
Troy Anderson's a beast. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say hello to a few more people in here. Albert Knoppers. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you. Chase Wellner. Morning, fellows. Hope you're feeling better, Nick. I'm feeling like not $1 million, but close. I'm just tired from the backpacking trip, and I need some new inserts or insoles for my shoes. Mine are starting to be graded down into dust, so going to be better there. We also have Question here from Colin Wood asking, when did the pass rush studs go from defensive ends to outside linebackers and then to edge? I would say in the last decade, especially as teams have the NFL draft has become more and more popular. The terminology has changed a bit because you have guys that when they're coming out, they fit into either one. So why not just have a singular word for them? Also, over the last 10 years or so, teams are far less static in their 4-3 or 3-4 base. You have much more hybrid fronts going on there, and a lot more nickel and dime kind of stuff. But really, the differences in the gapping up front is a big difference in the league. So I think it's just more of a catch-all term to fit those guys because sometimes you have your outside linebackers line up as a defensive end. Why not just call them edge?
That's what I was going to say, Nick, is and Colin, is depending on how they're lined up, those are all three the same position. A defensive end, stand-up outside linebacker. A stand-up defensive end is an outside linebacker, and an edge is an outside linebacker that's rushing the passer. I mean, they can all be the same positions. Now, again, big and fast never goes out of style. So if you can have Reggie White and you can have Aaron Donald and you can get those guys who can rush the passer in a four-man front, then they're still going to be the most valuable guys on your defense.
Yep.
They're just hard to come by. They're really rare. I mean, we're talking about just a few guys here, Bruce Smith and Reggie White. Those are two of the best all time. A lot of times Michael Strahan was one of those guys, but there's not a lot of them in the history of this game, and that's what makes them so special. When you can get a guy on the front four who can get after the passer like that. Otherwise, they need a little bit more space because you can double team a guy in a four-man front. If you can ISO him on one tackle, then you're going to have problems over the course of 16 games. But you can move your linebackers around. You can send them out wide and try and ISO them on a tight end or on a tackle. But inside, for me, those are your most valuable players. Y'all have heard me say it a zillion times. The best defense in the world is if I can get pressure with my four-man front.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's a 3-4, and I rush 4, one of the outside linebackers becomes a stand-up defensive end, edge, however you want to say it. I'm only rushing 4 and I'm dropping 7 in a coverage. I'm going to be really, really tough to beat if I can get pressure with 4 guys. Yep. So those are still the most valuable guys. It's just they're pretty rare. They're hard to come by.
Yep, and a lot of times there is actually strong correlation to early draft picks succeeding for those positions because the athleticism tends to translate and it's tangible. So, Kaleon, hello to you, Kaleon.
Just to continue on this one, Nick, Colin says, weren't DEs bigger, heavier guys than the edge rushers of today? Again, it depends on the scheme. An edge these days is basically what we would consider a stand-up defensive end, an outside linebacker that walks up to the edge, and he's rushing primarily because it's usually in a 3-4, and you've got 3 bigger guys in the middle. So it depends on the scheme. Again, we've come up with all these newfangled schemes and, names and descriptions. The game itself hasn't changed that much over the last 40 years. Some of the terminology has. So it just depends on your scheme. A lot of times in how you want to play it, you might have 4 big defensive linemen in your 4-3. But you can have lighter guys. And typically, your defensive ends, your big defensive ends are the interior linemen in a 3-4. Mm-hmm. Your 4-3 guys are usually in the 265 to 270 range, and sometimes they can be bigger than that, your 4-3 ends. If you're playing a 3-4, your ends are basically defensive tackles playing inside. And then you've got lighter, faster guys out on the edge as outside linebackers. So again, it depends on how you line them up and how you want to use them. Closer you get to the ball and the inside, the bigger you need to be.
Yep. Typically. But yeah, it's just because the defensive end in a 4-3 is a different spot than in a 3-4. And when you go to a 4-2-5, it's even a little different, more different then. So I think edge is just a better catch-all for that position on the field. We have Clayton Huron coming in saying, morning, guys. Good to see you, Clayton. He also says, smash that like button. Happy 4th. Bama X is in here. Good morning, Broncos country. We also have Chase coming in saying we'll probably only keep 3 linebackers on the active roster, right? Definitely seems possible. The big question here, and this is something that we would have a hard time talking about right now, given it's a new coaching staff and everything, but the special teams value. Who you might keep a 4th guy on there just for that reason. But right now, Justin Strnad probably on the way out. There's a few other linebackers that I can't see making the Broncos roster right now. Injuries could change things, and so could special teams.
I think you'll have 4, even if you include one as a hybrid like Baron Browning.
Browning.
I think you have to have 4, because if you're playing a scheme where you're going to have 2 on the field at any given time, then you're going to want a couple of backups. And then, as Nick says, on special teams as well. So, I don't want Josey Jewell being on the field for, an 11 snap series, and then needing to play punt coverage or kickoff coverage or whatever, So I think, and what is it? 48? It's 53 is the active, and then game day is like 48, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
So that I would expect to see 4 guys that can play 4 guys that can play inside linebacker on the 53. You might not dress all of them on game day, depending on who you're playing against, how you're moving guys back and forth. But I would expect to see 4.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Also, Nick Bonito has some hybrid ability as well, that he can kind of probably play that second level stack linebacker spot in a pinch if need be. The one that sticks out here to me looking over the Broncos roster that maybe is a dark horse to make the team is Mauga from USC. I know that he was spoken up a bit during the OTAs, so keep an eye for him in training camp and preseason. There's a very back end of the roster guy, but those are kind of some fun ones to watch. Jeremy's in the house. Good to see you, Jeremy. Good morning, boys. Great to see you.
Sounds like a good practice squad guy, honestly.
Chase coming in. This is the guy who was talking about Mauga.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sounds like a practice squad guy for me. Maybe he makes it as a special teams demon. Again, that was a big emphasis in this draft. We heard it a lot. We feel pretty good about, they didn't come out and say it this way. We feel pretty good about our starting 22 and our backups. We need help on special teams. We did hear the second part several times.
Yep.
We just didn't hear too many names on that. And
a quick shout out to Clayton's son. Didn't give a name, but said it's his 16th birthday today. So sweet 16, man. That's big time. I remember my 16th like it was yesterday. That's almost half my life ago. But happy B-Day to you and to your son. And it was great to hear that he's doing well. And I don't know if his name is Nick. Is that? Shout out to my son. Okay, now I thought he was asking me to give a shout out to his son. Great name also. So happy birthday to your son, Nick. We appreciate that. So let's start to put a bow on this a little bit before we start to wrap up. We talked Alex Singleton. We talked Jonas Griffith. Who do you think it's going to be in the end? Just to spoil it, we had Mike Evans do an article on it. That's why we're talking about this article today. 2 days ago. So shout out to Mike Evans for helping us generate some content here today. And he's projected Jonas Griffith, saying the biggest threat to the Broncos not making the playoffs is the high-octane passing game in the AFC West. A linebacker that can hinder the productive Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce or Las Vegas Raiders Darren Waller will be a key component in determining who will come out on top in the camp battle for the starting linebacker spot. Griffith's comfort playing in a similar defense as well as his athleticism and speed give him a clear advantage. So he picks Jonas Griffith. Obviously, I think that would be ideal for the Broncos because that's the ceiling discussion. But I do think that Singleton has more of a chance than many people are letting on. And that's not what we want, again, because we want everything to work out and players to reach their ceilings. And if both those guys reach their ceilings, it'll be Griffith. But there's definitely an argument.
I think starter smarter. I think number of snaps at the end will go Josey Jewell, Jonas Griffith, Alex Singleton at the inside linebacker position. I think that's where it will be ranked at the end of the year, assuming everybody says healthy, which is again, as Peter says, sadly someone will get injured or underperform. Feel pretty good about the performance. We've got some known quantities in there. There's not so many unknowns. We talk about all these young guys and upside. Well, most young guys don't make it. The average lifespan in the NFL is 3 years. That's average career length. That's 3 years. So when you get off your rookie contract, they realize you're not good enough. We're going to replace you with another rookie contract.
Yep.
Most of these guys are proven commodities. So I don't think the underperformance is as much of a threat as the injury. So assuming everybody is healthy and available, Jewell, Griffith, Singleton would be my top 3 as far as in that order, as far as snaps played inside.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with you there. We got Eclipse coming in saying happy Tuesday, fellas. Happy Tuesday to you, Eclipse. Good to see you. Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think that hopefully it'll be Griffith. And just to poke back at Mike Evans, you're talking about, who's going to line up against Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. Don't like it's going to be a linebacker. I think in those situations, at least in the high leverage situations where it's an obvious pass down where you don't want those guys to beat you, I think it's much more likely you're going to see a Kwan Williams or a third safety in that position where the linebacker's job is more of an area on the field, so to speak, not so much a stopping an opposing tight end or slot wide receiver. So handling crossers and directing traffic over the middle of the field and not getting guys behind them in their direct vicinity and tackling when guys do come into your area. That's one reason over the last 2 seasons, I know it's a small sample size because of injury, but Josey Jewell has been one of the highest graded coverage linebackers in the NFL. And it's not because he's out there playing man coverage down the field like Luke Kuechly on Julio Jones or something, but when guys catch the ball in his area, he tackles them for no gain. And that's what you want mostly from your linebackers in today's NFL, given the disadvantage
from an
they have.
offensive point of view, we know how hindering that can be when you're trying to move the ball, when you don't get any yards after catch. And, Noah Fant was one of those guys. That was probably the thing we lamented the most about him. It's like, dude, you're 260 pounds. Don't just hit it and go down. At least drag the guy for a little bit. No, looking at this roster, the topic last night was the ESPN/Pro Football Focus ranks this roster 14th, I think, in the NFL. And the biggest weakness they stated was the inside linebacker position. If your biggest weakness on this team is Josey Jewell and Alex Singleton and Jonas Griffith, you're going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't bad football players, for goodness sakes. And in a scheme where that position is phased out a little bit, it felt like a little bit of a cop out to me. Like, I don't want to call out anybody and say that, listen, the biggest weakness on this team is right tackle. Is the defensive line, is can they hold up against the run because they're a little light up front. It felt like a cop out to me. It's like, oh, they're not going to use him, so I'll write that down just not to make anybody mad. Because if that's your biggest weakness, your roster should be a hell of a lot stronger than 14th in the NFL.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely. And we got a comment coming in here from Dale as we're wrapping it up here, saying, great show, Nick and Scott. Keep getting better, Nick. Thank you, Broncos Country, for the fantastic discussion. You all have been healing and comforting. Yeah, Dale, been thinking about you. Hopefully you're doing well. Scott, any more comments on this linebacker position before we wrap it on up and get on out of here to start our Tuesday?
No, again, I just want everybody to stay healthy, for goodness sakes. It's such a shame when these guys, Jonas Griffith has worked his butt off to get this opportunity, and now he's earned it. He's in a position where he should be getting a lot of this, so many more snaps than he got last year. Kids, stay healthy, man. Stay healthy, and just it's such a short career. Especially when you start getting a little bit older and you start thinking these guys have a window of 6-8 years. One lost year is tragic. It really is. So just stay healthy. That's what I want for these guys, to stay healthy. And Chad Muma will be keeping a close eye on him down south, down in Jacksonville. I know that was someone that Ethan and the DWI guys wanted, and never lets us forget. God bless you for it, Ethan. And we'll see. We'll see how much the linebacker position is either even used or as a liability this year, to see how much sense it would have made for him to be in this defense at all. Because drafting him and having him sit and watch a dime defense be on the field 75% of the time, you'll understand pretty quick, like, hey, it didn't make a whole lot of sense when we're playing 5 and 6 defensive backs out there. But as always, Ethan, thank you so much for being the benefactor of the show. And I hope you had a good day yesterday and over in England. Like I put in the comments yesterday, I was like, we still love our English brethren. And he said, yeah, I'm keeping my mouth shut over here.
Yeah. And we had a question come in from Luke saying, when are we going to start getting Monday shows again? Probably not for another
couple weeks. We're almost there.
Oh, you think so? Okay. Well,
I mean, it's 4 weeks is August.
When preseason starts back up, we'll be in there. So let me look at my calendar real quick. I have 2 backpacking trips the end of August, but neither of them cover on a Monday. So, we can probably start when when the preseason starts back up. So hopefully it's feeling a little bit settled in the house and things can kind of die down. Although August will be somewhat chaotic. I got a backpacking trip the first week in August, the week of the 18th, the week of the 25th, and then I might be flying back to the Midwest for Labor Day. My dad got tickets for the Cardinals Cubs right behind home plate, and he's been badgering me to go back and see them. So that
The
might
first
be fun.
preseason game next August 13th.
It's coming.
You're going to blink twice, and it's going to be August 13th. I feel bad for my kids and their 10-week summers now. Remember when we used to have 3 months?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, you only got a month left where you have to go back to school. It feels like they just got out.
Yep. Welcome to the real world, punks.
Yeah, summer break. What's that?
God, man, it would be a bummer to be a teacher out here because like the summer doesn't really start until like mid-July, and you'd already be going back to school. Like this nice time in Seattle is August through September.
And
Those
see,
are the good
it's
months.
here in the South. They let them out now like the last week of May, which is good because August, it's too damn hot to do anything but sit inside in the air conditioning anyway. So you might as well be in school and get out in May.
Yep. That's que sera, sera. All right, guys. Well, good to be back. Feeling better. Obviously, have a little bit of crud in my throat, but felt good enough to do 40 miles and like 6,000 feet of elevation gain this weekend. So is what it is. Oh, Scott, we climbed all the way up to Blue Glacier on Mount Olympus, and we could see for feet. We saw the glacier maybe for 10 seconds, but all the mountains around were covered in fog and cloud. So to go up that high and not see anything was a little bit of a disappointment, but the rain held off. So feeling blessed with that and feeling healthy. Saw some banana slugs, saw some elk, saw some ptarmigans and grouse and everything like that. And the Hoh Rainforest is a magical place. It's the only temperate rainforest on planet Earth. So if you ever get a chance to get out here, it's incredible.
Those elk are fur-covered dinosaurs.
They're monsters.
The sounds they make are straight out of Jurassic Park. They're crazy.
Yep.
You expect like this big, deep. If you've never heard an elk bellow, just Google it real quick. It's scary.
Yeah, the bugling.
And they're huge.
Yeah. Well, in Olympic, it's a different type of elk that I think are only found there. They're called the Roosevelt elk, and they're the biggest in the world. So pretty fun. Saw those guys up at Elk Lake. Wow, appropriately named. But it was a good time.
Call it this anyway.
Yeah, I'll have to get back out there to get better views. I did it in 2018 with my wife when we visited out here, and we had perfect views. But my friends that went up was a little bit of a bummer for them because we couldn't see anything. But quite the journey, a good time, and maybe one of these days I'll have good weather for a backpacking trip. It's been 6 trips, and I have not had good luck yet there. But fingers crossed, we'll just keep shooting. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. The fighting banana slugs. Yeah, I saw a lot of banana slugs. Pretty fun.
Slime balls.
Yep, pretty cool. But appreciate you guys. We'll see you live tomorrow morning on Scott's channel, Forging the Falcons. And until then, make sure you're staying safe. Hopefully everyone had a good 4th. Choose kindness, choose compassion. Go Broncos.